tell her to take it down just a bit. Hey, can we have you take that down to maybe like a 2 or a 3 because you're like at an 8. We can hear you through the microphone.
Loud and clear.
So, shh. She's not even gonna.
She
I'm sending it
she
to
got,
Mel too.
She got the drama for your mama.
You know, if
Ooh, that's gonna be nice and warm.
if she wouldn't talk so damn loud like her mother. All right, how's our level sound?
Check. How do I sound?
Yeah, you're good. Good enough. Why is it always check?
I don't know.
It's always check. Okay, so I gotta look. Okay, I see a red light. Give me the red light. Red light, green light. It is 9:33. I'm actually gonna set a reminder for approximately
An hour?
Well, no. So I'm gonna set it for like 25 minutes.
Oh, to reset
So
the
I can.
that camera.
Yeah, so we can reset that
That
camera.
makes sense.
That one and that one,
Won't stop.
they should run for 2 hours or more. Hold up.
And we're already recording, aren't we?
Yeah, it's recording. So it'll run for 2 hours. So I got this beer in Decorah.
Oh, that couple weekends ago when you guys
Yeah,
had that
so
wedding.
it's Toppling Goliath Brewing Company. It's where I got the koozie from too. Reppin' Dominic and Carly.
Beer snob.
It's good stuff. So we got to the hotel at like 10 o'clock, 10:30, because we had photographed in Albert Lee,
Mhm.
and then we had the wedding Saturday in Waukon, and so we decided to take that Friday,
Mhm.
and do something. So we went to Decorah, stayed the night there.
Yep.
Got it at like 10:30, whatever it was. Got the room, and then we walked in. I'm like, I need something to drink. I'm tired. I just want a beer because I usually have a beer. It's usually a
Yep.
beer at the end of the night. I don't drink a lot, but it's like a drink, maybe 2, depending on the day, right?
Mhm.
And so the hotel that we were staying at had like where you can go buy it. And I want to say they were like $8 a can.
Okay.
And I look out the window and I can see a Quick Star. So I take Mel up the room. I'm like, I'm going right there. I'm like, you need anything, or do you want to come with? And she's like, no, I'm good. So I go over, and then I'm typically Corona,
Mhm.
right? And which I don't know why.
I used to hate Corona, and then all of a sudden
Even-
it started tasting
Even
good,
when it's
so-
skunky as hell, right? I'll still drink it. But I go down there. I'm like, I want something different, and it's brewed locally, and yeah, it actually tastes pretty good. But yeah, no, that was a dope wedding because they were out on his family's land.
Yeah, you showed me like
And-
one of the like overlooks or something like
Yeah,
that. And that looked
so
pretty.
we were back like 2 pastures in doing all the group stuff, and
Mhm.
so I had flown the drone from the house across the valley
Yeah, because you were just video
over there.
right?
Yeah, we were just doing video. We had worked with a photographer from Decorah. Oh, I'd have to look up her name. She was great. She was great to work with. She shot way different than I did,
Mhm.
which is always interesting when you have a photographer that shoots on a 35 all day long, and
Right.
I shoot long.
Yep.
But video, it's okay because I shoot a lot wider,
Mhm.
especially on the gimbal.
Yep.
I'll monopod a 7200,
Mhm.
but I did. So I have the arm on my gimbal extended because I've got the Zhiyun, however you say it.
pronounce that, yeah, I don't
Crane
think anybody can.
3S, right? June, whatever it is.
Mhm.
And so I put the big arm on it because I was tired of it clipping my microphone on the top when
Yep.
I had the shotgun mic on. And so then I was like curious. I'm like, God, can I run a 7200 on this?
Mhm.
And because I'd seen videos, I know there's a few creators that do a lot of video testing and stuff. And I think Make Art Now, which is shit, what is his name? Oh my God, I can picture him too. It doesn't matter.
Mhm.
He had put like a was it a 300 or a 400 on a Sony, like a 400 prime on a Sony
Uh-huh.
on a gimbal, and then he was on like a one wheel or some shit.
Oh man.
Like I would break my shit. I would totally break my
I
shit.
know what that would wear you out so much. I mean, just that kind of lens on a camera. If you've ever, if you've ever wielded one around, you're talking around a 7-pound lens.
Right.
And then you strap a camera onto it, and now you start talking, 4 or 5 pound gimbal or something, or maybe even more than that.
I don't even know what they weigh. It weighs a lot.
Yeah.
I know I handed mine to Addison one day, and she goes, "Oh, that is heavy."
Right.
And I'm like, I sling that sumbitch all day, all day,
But no, you were talking about having that shooter that they're on 35 or wide lenses. I think as a photographer, that's the good thing about being versatile and being able to work with several different lenses. Um, I think a lot of shooters nowadays are pretty much going to a wedding and they're shooting 70 to 200s.
Right.
And that's, kind of the go-to for most shooters these days. But then there's also, the group that wants to get in close and a little bit wider. And you and I have been typically around that 85,
Well,
sometimes even down to 50.
Yeah.
One of my favorite lenses now to use is that 50. But before I got that GFX and put that 63, which is essentially
Right,
the
a
50,
50,
millimeter, I was on 85 all the time. But that was the only lens that I could afford for that whole first year I had that camera was that 63. So it forced me to get used to it. And, I started seeing the world differently at that point. So, I think it was a blessing in disguise, because it made me a wider range shooter instead of just 85's
Right.
my
Well, and I remember when I was starting, and I was part of this photography group, which it's interesting as you go to see what groups you enter to learn, and then when you outgrow them.
Yep.
And I've done that on a few different levels where I learn, I go in and learn, I feel like I've gotten my goodie out of it, and then I exit and I find something else to elevate. And it's been, and I'm still in some of them. Some of them I'm not because it's just like it's the same questions from the same people over and over.
Yep.
But
or the same arguments time
Right.
and time again. And,
but where I was going with that was the 85. And I remember when I bought my 85 1.8. God, who did I buy that from? I bought it from somebody in Des Moines. Pretty sure, just used. And anyway, it doesn't matter. So like, I got that lens, and everybody's like, "This is the portrait lens." I've already got a 7200. I have a 24 to 120, and I had a 50, and I think the 85 was my next lens purchase. And so I got that, and I could not. And I still have trouble using an 85. But I bought a 135. And like, it took me a while to use that.
Right.
It's weird. You get so ingrained in using what you use. And like the 135, I use it a few times a year.
Yep.
I really, really like it for some portraits. The problem is that how far back you need to go.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons that it has kept me from buying a 200 f2.
Yep.
They're
very you think you're going to use them type of lenses a lot, and it's not that you don't, but they're a very distinct look that it can be overused.
Well, so it's that whole razor thin depth of field. So I have done, so like tonight. So I just got back from doing senior photos, and so there was quite a few shots at 200 mil 2.8 on my Nikon. So I get back, I frame it, but it's one kid and there's time, right? So there's and we were doing a senior guy, and I'm out in the trees and there's nobody around, so there's no obstacles on this path to stop. I could have been shooting on a 600 and made it work because I had the time and the length to make it work. But so I shot at 200 a lot, and I remember last year I was doing photos down in Ames, So I was doing a wedding in Ames. I think it was Ames, Ankeny, Ames, down by Des Moines. That's how hick we are up here. Like, I'm so removed from Des Moines, and because I do a few. Like I said, we booked a couple down there for next year, but
To me, it's just the same thing. Like
It's-
once you get south of Ames, it just kind of
it's
blends
everything's
together.
kind of together.
I know there's certain groups. No, this is this area, and this
Right,
is,
Ames
to
out,
me,
Ames
it's all
out,
the same.
From Ames to Ankeny to Altoona and Des Moines is kind of all together. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, so where I was going with this is that I had my 135,
Mhm.
and I was bound and determined to do wedding party photos on a 135.
Okay,
So I'm 50 yards away to get the entire group,
right.
because there's I want to say there were 6 on each side,
Mm-hmm.
plus flower girls and all this
Yep.
ushers and attendants and so I gotta yell, to get
Right.
to get everybody to hear
Start
me.
waving
Kind of
and-
Mel's kind of in between. The pictures are dope. They're
Mhm.
dope, but it's not one of those lenses that just makes a lot of sense for you to use
Yep.
all day long.
Yep.
And that's where an 85 could come in, because you still get that nice depth of field.
Mhm.
Now there's something to be said about that Sigma 135.
Oh, for sure.
That
yeah.
1.8 is really good, and it is supposed to be essentially the equivalent of having a 200 f2.
You know me, I've stuck a 300 on and
Oh
you know,
yeah,
use
you've
that for
you've used a
portraits.
300 2.8 for
And,
portraits. Well, at a wedding,
Yeah. Yeah.
like I remember doing that, and then I couldn't know because we were talking tonight, because I'm looking at that 600 f4,
Mhm.
and you're like, man, you could do some portraits with
Right,
that, and
yeah.
that's and that's not even why I was thinking about it. So the very little bit of downtime that we get in the winter, I was like, man, I would love to go. I have clients over in
Mhm.
Webster City, and Zach and Kelsey want me to come over and just hang out in the blind with them.
Yep.
And Zach's like, dude, it's heated. You can come. And he goes, we got all kinds of animals that come through.
Mhm.
And he goes, it would be just so cool to see what you get. And I remember when I first started playing with the wildlife stuff, when that was in 2020. So when COVID hit, I got bored because there wasn't
Yep.
shit I could do for a couple months.
And that was one thing I never got into was the
Right.
wildlife. It's just I'll see animals out, and to me, it's just like that's mine. I'm just gonna sit and enjoy
Right.
that. Sometimes I take a picture, but I'm just not driven by even any animal pictures. I'm like,
Right.
this is a dope shot.
Well,
but
so it's some animals. It's not
Mhm.
all. Now there's been times like I don't typically photograph birds unless it's an eagle or a hawk
Mhm.
or even a buzzard. Buzzards are kind of cool. And I've sold bald eagle prints.
Mhm.
I've never gotten the picture,
the shot.
and I've done a lot
the
of
thing
foxes.
about the shot, like when you get it, you're already moved on to the next one.
Right. Well, it's never good enough, right?
Mhm.
And so Melanie had found a Sigma 150 to 600, and that's been my wildlife lens, right? And it's okay enough, but then I compare it to other people when they actually have the big proper name, Nikon, Canon, whatever primes,
Mhm.
and then you look at those images. And I've bought some from other people, like I've bought Lane Wells. I bought an elk picture from him. I've got it hanging in the hallway over there with my elks, and you can really tell the
Still
difference.
Yeah.
You can tell the difference just with the lens quality.
when you start working with high end glass and you move up, in your photography and you can afford that,
Right.
there is a difference.
And then I bought another one. I bought a snow fox or an
Mhm.
Arctic fox from Jack Bell,
Mhm.
who's out in, he's in Wyoming. I think the Tetons are in his backyard.
Okay.
He comes out and he when he drinks his coffee in the morning.
Right. It's right there.
It's right there. Because I was talking to his, I think it was his cousin in Lorenz, and I reached out to Jack. I had seen this picture of this little kit snow fox,
Mhm.
and I was last name Fox, right? So I'm
Right. Yep.
I had this obsession with him, and so I ordered it. I have to get it mounted yet, but it's one of those that's on a 600. It's crisp. It's and once in a while that Sigma will pull a winner out of its ass, and you'll get
Right,
something
yep.
that's right, and it's just like the stars aligned perfectly.
Mhm.
But so what I did, I reached out to the guy, I talked to him a little bit, and I know you jumped online to see if you could find any better deals, and then I'm like, well, it has to be this. If we're comparing apples to apples, it is this lens,
Mhm.
this model, and it's a good deal, and it's one of those things you could buy and not get hurt.
Mhm.
And so then I'm looking at my outstanding invoices, and I'm like, If you all would pay.
Well, that's like I told you earlier. I'm like, so what day is this arriving?
Right. Yeah, I sent him a message. I did send him a message. I said, I'm 100% interested. I have to, I did have to send my one camera, my Z9 into Nikon. I want to see what that's going to cost beforehand, before I commit to spending, some bucks on a lens,
And the thing is, lenses like that, even though it's a good deal, like it is specialty equipment.
It doesn't make me any money.
Correct.
It makes me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing with my underwater setup.
Yep.
And that's
for you.
I encourage every photographer to photograph something for themselves. Now, I've sold underwater photos.
Yep.
And I utilize that. I offer photos for sale of underwater stuff, and we do sell some. But it was never started to sell, really.
Correct.
I mean, it's one of those things that, because people see that, they're like, man, what's that cost? I go, a lot, and I'm also scuba certified and everything else, so I can do this.
Yep.
But it's not, the end outcome is not for the photos.
Right.
It's for a little bit more sanity, because you go underwater, nobody can text or call.
Yep.
But it just gives you a different perspective on looking at things.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you've got a lot of that going on with some of the stuff that you shoot. A lot of it's for Jason.
Yep.
And
that's primarily, it's always been that way. If this is just a job, nobody will ever see the images.
Right.
And it's turned into a passion and stuff like that, and I've been able to turn it into financial gain and chase it as a career, and hopefully that will continue to grow over the years. But first and foremost, like, I'm doing it because I want to do it.
Right.
Like, whether or not it's gonna make me any money or not is not, I'm going to continue to do photography. And I think in this field, that's the very big thing. I think a lot of people, they look at a camera and they say, I'm going to get started in photography and, because I can make it money at it. And then when they start to realize how much work it actually is.
There's a lot of that. And it's every year.
Mm-hmm.
So around Christmas time, there's going to be some people getting cameras for Christmas or birthdays or whatever. And I remember, and I was one of those, right?
Mm-hmm.
I started.
A lot of photographers,
and
a lot of photographers start out that way.
But and I used to get worried. Oh man, they're going to shoot. They're going to take my customers, and then you got to sit back and realize, well, not really. And and so now 6.5 years in, when people are like, all the moms are out, or so and so, they all have new cameras and they're all gonna start, and I'm like, okay, cool. Do they need help? Because once they get going and see how much work it is to actually create the good images that people want, most of them disappear. And there's some that hang out and they are an average photographer, and they're a great marketer. And those people make more money than we do, and because what we consider a fantastic image that we would pay for, our level of what we expect is a lot higher than what that most people are.
But at the same time, there's other people that, like, they're in a whole different league even from what we are.
Oh, and, absolutely.
And it continues to go that way. But that's the reason why we work as hard as we do at the craft of it, because we realize, we've came a long way since the start, but this is still a start.
Yeah.
And, we have a long way to go. And I think we each have lofty goals in the photography and videography
one or
deals. I think ours differ a little bit, but it's still that passion and that drive, and then figuring out how we can both get there together.
Right.
And, I think that's, our biggest point together, because, if you start doing something that's better than me, like, I got to one up you,
right.
And it's just been that way since the start.
Well, it was like, so my session and I got home. First thing I did, I back everything up. It goes to my NAS systems. It's double backed up, so we don't ever lose an image. And I pull up a couple, right? I'm like, I want to see what this looks like. you're like, you could have done this, and what about this? And I'm like, well, I'm doing this, and I'm doing this, and I still edit the photo. I'm like, look, on a basically on a senior photography, and this is a 1 hour session. Bear in mind, so this is a quick session. They just needed some. I'm not dragging multiple light stands through buildings to get rim lighting to make sure that I control everything. I kind of deal with it. Now I have some that they're like, okay, we want this session plus we want this, and it's this. So then 2 or 3 lights get brought out and more people get brought on because there's a certain deliverable that they're expecting.
And that comes with a different price tag as well,
right?
Because you start involving more.
I have to charge more for.
And
what? I do. So I do joke about that. I go, the more lights I get out, the more money it costs you. And most of the time I'm joking. Sometimes I'm not. And it's that is a joke in the commercial world. The more lights that are on the set, the more money it costs. So they just have lights. Right. But like that one image tonight, I'm like, I need to drop the magentas down because of the LED lights that were actually lighting up this image, and then, separation tool, select subject, re-warm them up to get them the same. So the image balances out. But yeah, I mean, it's funny because you'll sit there and you're like, well, what about this? And I'm like, I know, like, hey, Tim, that you sure you're off a half a degree. Something's messing with me. Oh,
we're doing that now?
That's what we're doing today, huh, Jason? All right.
But it's little stuff like that, and that changed your photography.
You think I don't think about that every damn time I point that camera at a building?
I know you do. And I even told you that day, I'm like, from now on, that nagging little voice of me saying, hey, it's off, and you're never gonna look at an image the same again. But I'll do that stuff, with my own photography, and I'll catch stuff that nobody else will ever see, and we'll nitpick them little deals. But that's what we learn for that next time, and that's where that growth is.
Right.
And a lot of people, it's buy more equipment, and then they just have a ton of options. They still don't know what to do with them options.
I do have a problem with buying equipment, though.
I think we both do. We both like equipment.
I just ordered a new recorder today.
Oh, you didn't tell me that.
No. So I ordered a new Zoom. So we've got the Zoom
P4.
The P4 for podcasting. So this is just portable. You can plug in these microphones anywhere. But I ordered the I'm gonna have to look at it. It's a 2-channel 32-bit float. So I have the little mic recorders with the lavalier mics. Well, this one is essentially their big brother with XLR inputs.
Okay.
That I can control with my Bluetooth on my phone. It's more for, so you can use it for several things. So I can use it for my DJs when I plug in, which I got to come back to DJs too. But so I can use that, and then I can also use it. So if I take, I don't have a shotgun mic right here now, but like my Rode NTG, or even like your Rode, the on camera mic Pro, whatever the one you got,
Video Mic Pro.
So and I have a boom pole. It's kind of it's not homemade, but it's close enough. Right. Yep. It works. Right. And so you can put those 2 basically on camera microphones on that boom pole. I can boom them over by hand, or I can have somebody grip or whatever. And then I run the cable down to the recorder, so then you can monitor it, and then it's a 32-bit float. So what that means is that it takes the whole thing, and so I don't have to adjust the levels, and it doesn't automatically adjust. I was trying to explain this to a friend of mine who does video as well, and he goes, well, it's an auto leveler. And I go, no, it just takes in everything. So as long as your microphone isn't peaking, the sound recording won't peak.
Gotcha.
So like if I yelled into a microphone, it's not gonna peak.
Not gonna blow out.
It's not gonna blow out, and then it picks up the smallest of sounds. So it's kind of versatile. It can be used for, it's going to be used for weddings. Like I've got a couple. I only have one more video wedding this year on the 22nd. As of right now, there'll be 1 or 2 that pop back in by the end of the year.
Right.
And then, but the other thing will be for, I do like to get background shots like in music videos and stuff. So we're like, we can use it on that.
I want to do a live show here before too long.
Right.
Go do some video and like so.
Yeah.
We need a live show.
The live show. Well, we have everything to do it, and that's like after I had that last snafu
Mhm.
with the ATEM and trying to live stream.
Yep.
Like I literally put it in a box.
Right. Yeah.
And so I was watching, and this will jump. So anyway, I ordered a new recording pack. So, but that I can control with my phone to make sure, because my biggest thing is when you forget or it doesn't get turned on
Mhm.
for speeches. So all you have is the on-camera shotgun mic right by them,
Right.
and then it's not as good as what I would want it. Now the clients love it
Mm-hmm.
because they get to see that from the day.
Yep.
It's not
like
it's
we
not the
start
cat.
talking. We start nitpicking. Different
It's not like
things, and
this where it should sound like this where they actually have that.
Mhm.
And so my biggest fear, and it's always in the back of my head because I've done it before. I've screwed up where I have not gotten it right,
Mhm.
and then I've had to use a backup source.
or
Is
something just fails.
right.
you
So
know, 'cause
as
the
that I
equipment
can
does
while
fail.
it's running during the speeches, and during speeches, I mean I'm by 2 or 3 cameras, and I
Mhm.
just kind of watch everything. I'll pan around to get parents and
Mhm.
people laughing or having a good time. But I can pull the app up on my phone and make sure that it's still running.
Okay.
So I'll be able to see everything. So it's
Mhm.
one of those insurance policies
Right. Yep.
that I kind of wanted. And so and the reason I wanted to talk about DJs is because
Time to switch that camera.
time to we're gonna pause this one because it's got 3 minutes left, but we're gonna do it anyway. So we're changing, and we're recording again.
Yeah.
So-
Then after you talk about the DJs, I want to jump back into something we were just
Yep.
kind of.
So I just want to talk about the DJs real quick. And everybody knows, like, yeah, I always tell people, I'm like Alyssa Kirsch from Mojo is like, she's my girl.
Super.
She's my DJ. And so I shared that video from Coda and Dakota last night,
Okay.
which was like, I knew, so I had to add that little bit in the beginning of when they grabbed the camera and they were
Right.
talking.
Yeah. And we even talked about that night. Or
You know,
like,
that,
that's
as
gotta
soon
be
as they
in
did
there.
that, I'm like, I have to do that. Because, like, at the beginning, he's like, Dakota, I love you. And then she comes up and smoochy face and whatever else, right?
Mhm.
And that was really good. And then at the end of the night, and that is the perfect example of the beginning of the day, the
And
end of the day. So, like, I
'Cause
couldn't.
It was one of the first, well, not the first shots.
It
but
was
one of the
right
first shots when
after-
they got together.
It was right after the ceremony when they did that because
Oh,
they
okay.
hadn't
I
seen
was
each
thinking
other.
That's right.
They hadn't
didn't
seen
do it
each other.
till the,
So,
wedding.
but then,
Forgot
like, that last shot was literally the last video shot of the night.
Mhm.
Excuse me, and I can't post it. Like, I cannot say what they said because do you remember the shit she was talking?
Oh yeah, I remember all.
And
of
I'm
it, but
laughing.
yeah.
And then at the end, he goes, "This was a mistake," and we're like, "We have to use that," because
Uh-huh.
and then we're all just. I was like, "I can't use the last 5 minutes that she filmed on there because
Right,
I
right.
was like, because he was like, oh my god." But now they had a great time, and
they
it
were
was
having fun.
they had a
so
blast, and that wedding was so much fun, and that's why I
The
was
filters were off at that point.
the filters
so-
were off, and that was just like when we were doing like because we came out right. Ceremony's over. I have to wrangle everybody to get
Mhm.
the group pictures now. And they were like, "Do you want some whiskey?" And I said, "Sure, you know me, right?
Mhm.
I love me some whiskey." And there's a bottle of Irish whiskey and a bottle of I don't even know what it was. It was a Kentucky bourbon. And here, Tim, they hand me them both, and I take a drink of one, and I'm not taking a sip. I'm taking a glug 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 and a glug glug glug, and I go, "Look, whatever filter I did have is now
It's
gone."
gone.
So, but anyway, back to where I was going with that. So, like Alyssa and I had shared that video. I tagged Mojo because they did a great job. Swiss
Mhm.
Acres is awesome as usual, and I was messaging with Alyssa because I'm like, I think I'm with you one more wedding, which is the 31st out at Swiss Acres, which is
Okay.
my last wedding of the year on December 31st. And I was like, "Do you hear that good DJ? That good DJ sound, that good microphone sound?" She goes, "Oh, I know it was there." You know, but I always love my DJs. So I mean, I've got Mojo, which there's a few like I like. I love Alyssa.
Mhm.
Katie is phenomenal.
Mhm.
Jared's pretty good, even though he's the boss.
Right.
He's my number 3. Sorry, Jared. But and then Noda DJ, which Alex and I have not really had the chance to work together.
Okay.
We talk. I've been to his house. We've had lunch together. and they do some things different than some other DJs, which I really love.
Mhm.
They're bilingual. They do some other stuff, and then the other bilingual DJ I got is Juan Carlos,
Okay.
which is Carlos Callis Entertainment.
Okay.
And our very first gig together, because we've never been together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have photographed for him. You know, we've all recommended each other,
Yep.
and so our first event together is actually going to be the Sioux Central Prom. So
Gotcha. 'Cause, yeah, you were talking with him on the phone the other
Yep.
day or messaging or something
Yep,
like that,
yep,
and you
so-
brought that up. And
but
I worked with one DJ, the wedding I had down in Sac City, and he was super. You know, came right up and asked me, you know, different questions that I was going to talk to him about anyway.
Right.
And you know, about what lights could he have on during first dance.
I
And,
love that.
and you know, like I told him, I said, just let me know a song ahead of time, you know, if you're going to do cut the cake or anything like that. And he said, we're just going to take care of that right in the beginning. I said,
Sweet.
perfect. I love it.
Yep.
And so, yeah, anytime, you know, he'd have any question, he'd just point at me and have me come
A
over.
good
and
DJ.
It was great communication.
Yeah, a good
and
DJ can make the
so-
whole event.
Absolutely. And it was another deal when, you know, when the dance floor cleared, you know, he switched songs, dance floor cleared, that song was off and he was on to the next one to bring people back out.
Yeah, that's
And
nice.
you know, so he was paying attention to what he was doing, and he was running a very good dance, I
Yeah.
thought. So in reception.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So that's our DJ segment, and we'll talk about more. I'll actually want to bring some on at some point, but
Yeah,
Um,
you know, I'm sure Jared would get on, or Alyssa or somebody
Right,
like that
for
would
sure.
jump on. No, I was going to ask you, and now I
Yeah.
spaced it off, but I got it on my list. What you know, we were kind of talking about growing as photographers. What do you contribute to your biggest growth since you started
so I
as a
am.
photographer or videographer? Either one.
So let's just okay. So we can kind of lump them together. So my biggest growth. So I guess I would call it twofold, right? So when I started, I was having a rough year
Mhm.
in my initial business, my construction business, and some of it was self inflicted, some of it was client inflicted. Is bad decisions on both parts, blah blah blah.
Mhm.
Right? You can sit here and point fingers all day long, but you
Sure.
know it's in the past for a reason, right?
Mhm.
So, but it helped boost me into kind of burying my head into my camera a little bit,
Mhm.
and so that was the bump that I needed to really start looking at possibly shifting gears as far as a career went.
Yep.
And then so once I decided to maybe take that little bump and see what this path has to offer, the biggest key to my success is there's different ways. So you can call it obsessive, you can call it tenacious,
Mhm.
you can call me a bulldog, but I get locked onto something,
Mhm.
and I just wanted to focus on all of that stuff,
Yep.
right? So I needed to focus on being as good as I could possibly be with the camera. The video stuff kind of came in as somebody had reached out and they're like, "Hey, we need
Mhm.
photos and
And
video."
video.
And I'd been thinking about it because there wasn't a lot of video in this area.
Mhm. And there
and
still isn't to an extent.
There's not. There's a lot of people from Des Moines and stuff that come up. Des Moines and Sioux Falls are way big.
Right.
That end up in the Lakes
When you
area.
start talking, the Des Moines market itself is a pretty good
It's a good market. So and that was in 2018. So I think I was doing a quinceanera, and one of my good friends, my mentors, Angie. I was talking with her about that, and I was like, you know, I said, "Hey, here's what I've got going on," and I remember when I sold the job because I'd called Melanie,
Mhm.
and I'm like, "We're doing photo video." She goes, "We don't do video." I go, "We do now."
We do now.
So I did the photos and I gave the video away for free,
Mhm.
right? And so what I did, I talked to Angie. She helped me. She basically helped finance a camera
Mhm.
for me, and I bought all the stuff that I thought, you know, that the internet told me I needed, which I did not need.
Right.
Like you got to have the monitor, and you got to have, dude,
Don't you love some of that advice?
that
on there
monitor,
is
that
absolutely
$500 or
terrible?
$600 monitor, I've maybe used a half a dozen times.
Mhm.
Like it's a great monitor. I do not use that thing.
Great.
You know, I actually have a cheaper one that I use because it's bigger.
Mhm.
It was $100 versus
Right.
$500. But
I think that's what helps too is knowing others in the industry that you can, you know, after a while that you learn and you can be like, hey, do I need this? You know,
No.
like we've done back and forth, you know, look at this product, and we might talk
What do
each
you
other
think?
into something.
Yeah.
And we did that tonight. I asked you, "Hey, what do you know about this system?" And you're like, "I've looked at it and I've talked to,
Right.
and, I spent the last 2 days kind of, as I'm editing, I've got, another screen with videos going on. So I'm learning at that same time.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I think it looks like a good system, and I think it'll elevate the photography from where it is now. And so I'm constantly pushing that direction.
Right.
But,
Well, there's so much out there, and it's the hardest part is when you get to a plateau,
Mhm.
and
you don't know where to go.
you don't know where to go. And I think part of that is how I've started shooting some other stuff, because I'm like, I need something a little bit different to either just like reset my brain or get me interested in something else and come back, or like with the sports photography course that I'm taking, which is going to require a pretty good investment into lighting to do it, because I want to do it to the level of Nike, Under Armour, professional sports stuff.
You want that stylized commercial look.
I want the best, I want it to be on par with world-class brands. So that's my goal with that and that stuff. So, it's just what's the next step. And the worst part is, you go, you plateau, you go, you plateau. And then the plateaus get closer and closer and together. And then you're crawling up the mountain
Right.
at a snail's pace to get better.
Yep.
And I'm not at snail's pace yet. There's always, I love working with other people and learning how they do things, what they do.
Yeah, because you just even start watching, another photographer, even that you look up to, or that is putting out work that you admire, and just watch the way they shoot.
Yeah.
Watch the way they work a room, watch the way they're looking for images, and you can pick up so much information off of that. I go out and I shoot street photography with quite a bit of different people. I'll even put out on Instagram, different times I'm in Des Moines, like I did this weekend, who's out. And I've had people reach out to me and say, hey, when I was going to the fair, and, I had Kyle reach out to me, and he's like, hey, how long are you going to be at the fair? I'm like, all day.
Right.
I'll be here 10 hours. And I said, yeah, if you're coming out, let me know when you get here. And, we didn't get a lot of images that day. We did a lot more of this back and forth. But at the same time, we were talking about, what are you looking for? And, and it wasn't so much the equipment. The equipment really didn't matter. We discussed different cameras that we were using and different settings and why. But a lot more of it was, what are you looking for? And you're paying attention to what they're taking pictures of, because a lot of times you would have never seen what they're looking at.
Right.
So,
yeah, it was interesting because, talking about what you're looking for, and you'd shared with me that image tonight of your couple. And I was like, I just did that. Like, I just did that. Like, I did it with a senior, because you're like, yeah, you got these. And I'm hanging over this. And I'm like, I've done that. Like, I'm hanging off the edge with a senior with a camera. And, I'm shooting through things to frame them and do all this other stuff. And it's
you got framing and subframing and all that type of stuff.
Just stack it up and just give it dimension, but also give it to where it's focusing everything to where where you want your eye to go.
Yep.
And I remember it was Ben Shirk, and he was talking about some of his composite stuff that he does. And he's a big composition guy like you are. Massive composition guy. And it's some of the stuff that he does for like the World Photographic Cup.
Okay.
And so he's explaining how he gets people's eyes to move around an entire frame of things.
Yep.
And he goes, you hit this, but then it bounces you back, and then you've got this, and then it brings you over here to this, because then you think you're going out, but then you catch this. And I'm just like it's like the dimensions that went into that.
There's a thought process that goes into that.
Right.
And that's kind of like we were going into, and I had asked you, what's your biggest, where have you got the biggest growth? And my biggest growth is constantly looking at other people's work.
Right.
And is constantly trying to figure out how they did it. It wasn't the, oh, they were shooting with this or they were shooting with that. It's that thought process that went through their head
Right.
as, why did I put this in this part of the frame? Why did I put this in this part of the frame? And there is a structure and there's a balance. And, if you want to get real artsy, there's a melody to an image. And when you know
Right.
how to start reading that, you realize how good some of these shooters actually are. And I think a lot of people look past that because they don't understand that structure and everything else. When they're looking at, I look at a lot of photographers out of the 50s and 60s. That was like my favorite era of photographers. I've got some that go back in the late 1800s that I look up to, and I look at their work constantly and trying to figure that out. And people will start talking Ansel Adams, and my pictures look just as good as Ansel Adams, or if not better. Realize the equipment that he was using,
Right.
what he started with when he went into the dark room,
Right.
and what he ended up with. Technically, he was an amazing photographer.
Well, he
but
didn't
what
have
he
anybody
did-
to learn from.
But what he did in the dark room,
Right.
that's what
That
made
was- yeah.
him who he was.
And people don't realize the amount of development that goes into a dark room.
Mhm.
But and so and I'm trying to think what I was just. So you're funny. So you're looking at how they built the image, right? And I'm always looking at where are the lights at.
Yep.
Where's the light source? I'm looking at
And that's
watching
part of
watching
dissecting
Netflix.
an
Watching
image.
Netflix. Pause. Mel's like, "What are you doing? Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
Where are they bouncing that light from? Because it's not direct." I'm like, "Oh, and then you see it, and you're like, nice, nice, And unfortunately, there's a lot of what we do on a day-to-day basis that you don't get to do all that.
Right. Yep.
But it's nice to know, and you have that in the back of your head.
But you're still
that you
constantly
could.
looking for that light.
I'm always
the time.
looking. The catch lights, I'm either looking for a catch light. If there's none, I'm just curious where their natural light is. And that's so one of the things. And I just watched a YouTube video from Jared Polin, and I don't watch
Frono's photo.
Frono's photo, and I don't watch him that much because it's one of those things where I've kind of outgrown him, right?
Yep.
But it's still entertainment value.
I like I like some of the stuff that he's into.
Dude, I still watch
and,
stuff on f-stop.
Right.
I still watch stuff on basic stuff, like just for some reason, right? And but anyway,
It depends on who's delivering.
right? And Jared was going through. He was doing like a submit your best 10 images, and he goes through and critiques them, right? A critique whatever McTreakerson or whatever he calls it. Anyway, so he's doing it, and the fake sun flares, right? And I'm like, yeah, I did that, right? I did that. I remember doing that, and
I think we all went through that phase.
and I was like, and sometimes that kiss that it will, but what they'll do it in this corner and the light's coming from this way. I'm like, no, like you gotta pay attention to where that light's coming from. So so technical difficulties.
We lost the batteries in our recorder.
So we're gonna get all these kinks worked out in this thing, and this will never happen again. This actually goes back to when we were talking about not starting the recorder or whatever with the DJ. So one of the last things we were talking about was adding that little starburst or that little sunburst in the corner of a photo, and it's lit over here. There's sun's coming over here, but the light's actually coming from this direction. And it's just one of those things that as you grow as a photographer, you notice. You start noticing those little things. But yeah, and I guess one of the things that I wanted to talk about was, so this morning while I'm enjoying my coffee, I was watching a video. Taylor Jackson put the video out, but it was Jerry Gijonas and Melissa Gijonas, and Jerry he's a Nikon pro, like he's like.
One of my favorite quotes that he always says: "If it lights, use it."
Right. Oh, he's good. Like he is so big on using what's available for light. But so WPPI is not having a print comp for this year, and they're upset about it. But what the video was going over the print comp for last year, and then they're bringing it back for 2024. And as I'm watching that, I'm like, there's an image from a wedding this year of Morgan, and you took it in that Catholic church in Bancroft, and it belongs in a WPPI competition. Like it belongs there because it is that good. And I know you want to go reshoot it, but it belongs
I
there.
see the things that are, that could be improved in the image
Right.
by a long shot. And part of it was not having the adequate equipment that we needed, to properly light the
Well-
shot to take it from good to great.
Well,
of a thing.
part of that is that, again, and that's, on a wedding day,
Mhm.
you don't have a grip running around.
Yep.
If you had somebody to run around and do the lighting for you, which I think would be weird because then it ends up being like it's a freaking MTV wedding,
And see,
which I don't want.
I would use that grip when I needed them there. I would use them as a second photographer, except when I needed that light
Right.
for a shot like that. 8200 or a V1 or something like that on a pole where I can be like, hold this there, grab a couple shots, fold it back up, and away we go.
Is there like an extendable,
I have one.
but like something that you can, because there's a lot of times like I have a bag,
Mhm.
I went from having my sling leather bag
Yep.
to my backpack. And like instead of having a tripod on the side, you can literally have that.
Mm-hmm.
And so you could use your assistant
Mm-hmm.
and not call. I mean, it's like we start talking about grips. I just see like these guys running around with all
booms,
with
like,
booms and
over
all
the
that
top,
shit. And I'm
and
just like,
Like
I
that
don't-
image that I sent you earlier when we were talking about, shooting long or shooting wide, and this guy posted up right in front with a tripod,
yeah.
right in front of like the entire audience and everything else. And I'm like, that's ruining that whole
just
wedding
like
for everybody.
Uncle Jim squatting down in the center of the aisle at the first kiss. And you're like, well,
Yep. He's staying
well,
in there.
I guess Jim's in there. He had to get that shot. And
And we've had that happen before, and
I've
you
had
know,
the
people with cell phones.
I've had the minister not
That's right.
move. Like
That's
he stood facing the bride and groom, which I thought was great. That way he wasn't facing the audience
Mm-hmm.
and they were, and then first kiss and he didn't move. And Melanie anticipated it because she'd already asked. She's like, is that guy going to move? And the lady's like, yeah, he's going to move.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't move. And I was just like, and I'm trying to move. And I knew that she had already shifted
Mm-hmm.
way over to the side.
Right. But that's
And-
also what's nice about having that second shooter there.
Right.
Because
Well, that's another,
you
that's
know,
a selling point.
we've had it before where not only that, but somebody in the audience, all of a sudden they step over and they're in the way.
Right.
That first kiss might last a second.
Dad is
Sometimes-
bringing the bride round in the aisle,
Mhm. Sometimes that camera misses focus and it grabs
you
something
got
else.
you got somebody stepping out with his cell phone after I explicitly went, put them away. No, they look at the signs. I mean, I really like somebody explain this to me. And if anybody that's not a photographer is watching this, can you explain to me why you are willing to disobey the wishes of the bride and groom to bring a friggin' cell phone to a wedding, step out into the aisle to get a picture just to show them that you were there, or like to be the first one to send it to them? Are you going to print that for them?
There's a lot of
Are you going to put it on their wall? Are you going to have it processed? What are you doing with that? Like they spent a boatload of money to have a good quality photographer there to get these moments. So if it is one of those worthy photos that they want to print, like, what are you doing? You're in a gym.
right.
Like, what is it? Did you compose the shot as you stepped out? No. And the thing was, I happen to know the one person that did it at a wedding. And after the wedding, I went up to her and I go, I go, the pastor said, before everybody's like, no phones. I had just walked up and down the aisle. I said, put your phones away. She said, no, I need them away. And you heard me. And yet you still stepped into my shot to get this photo. So I went up to her afterwards and I go, are you going to print that off and give it to them? Are you going to take care of it? You going to make sure that they get that? Or was that just to show everybody that you were here? I've known this woman for 30 years,
Right.
and I'm like, seriously? She's like, well, I guess I didn't think about that. I said, no, you didn't.
And I think a lot of people don't think about that. We're in that market or space or whatever you want to call it anymore, where everybody's taking pictures to show where they are
Right.
or where they're going, which is
Well-
weird because I think a lot of people have misconceptions about what I actually do. because if I take a trip, I might be posting pictures from that trip
Oh,
for 8
it's
months.
it's 6 or
And
8 months
people are
sometimes
like,
before I ever post a picture
and
from
people are
one.
like, "Oh, you're traveling all the time." It was one trip.
I've been in Newell, but it's like I get it, and so and that was a year ago,
Mhm.
and so what I've started doing is I help the people that have the cell phones.
Right.
I literally tell them during the ceremony. I will walk up and down and be like, "Look, don't step in my aisle. If you want to have your cell phone out, because it's one of those things. They're not going away,
Right.
and people always like, well, it's an unplugged ceremony, and I go, look, they don't listen. I do 30 of these
Yeah.
things a year. They don't listen.
You can have all the signs in the world. You can make an announcement.
They don't
Somebody's
care.
still pulling that out.
Somebody is better off than the announcement. So what I tell everybody is, look, I know you want to get these pictures, so here's what I need you to do. If you want to photograph or video or whatever during the ceremony, stay in your seat. Keep your phone close.
Mhm.
If you're on the aisle, keep it here.
Mhm.
Do not stick it out in my aisle. I will kick it out of your hand.
Mhm.
But if you keep it here, I have no problems with you.
Yep.
And then especially the other thing that I have actually started enjoying doing
Mhm.
is, so we're doing group photos, right? And sometimes it's hard to get everybody to focus.
Right.
I'm loud enough that I can kind of.
Especially when there's a lot of phones around and you
So,
start talking to a large group,
right.
eyes are going everywhere.
So what do
And
I
so
do?
it's
What do I
clapping
do?
Your hands and right there.
I grab everybody that's got a cell phone. I go, you need to be
Stand
right by
right
me.
here.
If you stay by me, you're going to get a better shot
Mhm.
with your cell phone, and it's going to be less distracting. So grandma will come up and she's trying to get it. I'm like, no, come over here. Get this shot right here.
Yep.
This is where you want to be.
Yep.
So, I went from being anti-cell phone
Right.
to, let me see if I can help these people get a little more courteous.
Yep.
Still get a great photo.
Mhm.
And it doesn't.
Everybody
it doesn't,
gets what they want. and it's
Everybody
not.
gets what they want.
Mhm.
I don't have to be an ass.
Mhm.
I'm really good at it, but I don't have to be.
Right.
And it just works out for everybody.
Mhm.
Because people at the end aren't going, well, that guy was a jerk.
Right.
Now, wedding party people, they get to say I was a jerk, because there's times when I'm like, that's enough.
Right.
That's enough. Like, well, we just, no, that's enough.
Mhm.
Like,
The sooner we get through
yeah,
this, the sooner you
if
can
I
get
have
back
to
the
dad
party.
you, like if I have to dad you, you're getting grounded. I'm taking your phone away. Right. But so, and that's just one of the things with today's society and technology and stuff. And it's not going away. So you just figure out how to work with it.
But yeah, you were talking about that image in the church,
Mhm.
and we had a great conversation going before the mics died. So we can start back with that. We started talking about the structure of an image, and training your brain to see them.
Yeah.
Because it was a simple walking back there, and all of a sudden that door moved, and there was a reflection in it, which triggered like, hey, these are reflecting. What are they doing? And so I pushed these double doors away, and here
Mhm.
was these windows right there reflecting this beautiful light that's filling this church back
Right.
behind me. There's nice, beautiful lines and everything. And with the doors open, it created nice leading lines leading in, and you had this nice dark shaft. So we lit Morgan from the side.
Yeah. With the cell phone.
And with a cell phone.
I'll pop that image up right here so you guys can all see it. It's pretty incredible.
But yeah, it's one of them deals, if I could do over, I needed more light. The cell phone wasn't enough. I cranked the ISO as far as I could possibly
Oh, it's
do.
gritty.
It's gritty. It's gritty.
It looks cool.
I'm at 10,000 ISO there, and I was still dragging the shutter.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to do it with an unstabilized camera and lens.
And we did it in a minute.
And so, yeah.
Yeah,
From
and,
the time of
like,
concept.
if you looked at that, because we were literally walking back and taking her downstairs,
Mhm.
and you were like, "Hold up, stand right here, Mel. Can you hold these doors right here? All right, Tim.
Everybody's going,
I need
"What?
more. I
What?"
need more light. I need more light. I'm like, okay, I got my phone. Then at that point, we know everybody knows what you're doing, and Morgan's
Mhm.
like, "What? Stop. Look over your left shoulder.
Yep.
Just give it a sniff." And she's like, "Oh, trust us.
It'll
This
be
is
fine."
this is gonna work on." Jason's like, "Almost got it. I need more light. I need more light. Hold on. That'll
Got
work. All right, cool. Go hang
Yep.
out with your friends. We got it."
That was the best we were gonna get with with the time and the equipment that we had. But I was talking about the best thing that I have done to grow as a photographer is learning from other images, and it's not them Instagram images with thousands of
You're
lights
learning
or
from the
anything else.
masters.
Absolutely. And I'm going back in the 50s and 60s or early 1900s. I'm also looking up artists and how they did it, and like you started talking about with what direction the lights are coming from. There's certain painters that I look up to just because of the fact of how they use light.
Right.
And so I'm going to art museums and stuff like that. And it's constantly feeding your brain with them images, because the more images you consume, all of a sudden it triggers that. When you see this color light or that color
Right.
light, it starts triggering them images. And the more you do it, it's just like exercising your body.
Yeah.
And
Well, so talking about that, when you're talking about the color of light, so for somebody who shoots in black and white in their digital camera a lot, you miss that once in a while.
I do,
And
but I still see it with my eye.
but there's, because I remember when we were doing that wedding last winter,
Mhm.
and I was like, Jason, you need to be over here. You're like, what? And then you like look through your camera and you're like, what? And I'm like, turn it to color. Oh shit. And it's and there's also things that I miss by being in color all the time and not in black and white. So and it's always cool, it's always cool to see the difference and stuff. And you show people, they're like, well, it's in black and white. Oh, it's gonna be in color.
It's gonna be in color.
It's gonna be in color. It's just in film. Like it's not burned in there.
Yep.
It's not JPEG.
Right.
Now if I did it in video, it would be in black and white,
Right. And that's what, a lot of people don't understand. What we're talking about is when I start shooting my images, I flip my camera over to black and white. I like eliminating all and any distractions. I like my cameras to be as simple as they can. I need to control aperture, shutter speed, ISO. I flip it over to black and white, and all I'm paying attention to is contrast, structure, and tone. And the rest does not matter to me.
Yep.
Because if I can get that image to look good in black and white, I'm guaranteed to have an image.
Right.
And maybe in black and white,
It might be in black and white.
or color, because sometimes you get that strange wonky light. And a lot of people differ from me for the fact that if they're like, oh, if it don't work in color, just flip it to black and white. And to me, them are two very, very different images. And just because it doesn't work in color does not mean it's going to work good in black and white. You can make a black and white image, but that don't mean...
It's usually when it's that really funky DJ lighting that they've got them cheap LEDs that destroy the colors and then
But you still got that hard contrasty light. You can see that contrast and you can make that
well,
work.
and that's just one of those things that you learn over time. You're like, okay, well, I know this lighting is shit right now, so I'm going to have to.
Yep.
And that's one of the things. And as you and I was progressing in our in our business, where I was like, I need everything that you edit in color. At one point, I had hired another company to, they edited a wedding. And I said, yep, a mix of black and white and color is fine. Well, I not realizing that they weren't going to deliver the black and white ones in color.
Oh, okay.
So, so that's why I was like, okay, I need everything in color because I don't want, a bride or a groom coming back and going, hey, I need this photo in color. And then I got to go find it.
Yep.
So what we do when we deliver is that in their online gallery, they have the option to switch it to black and white. Now, it is a simple removal of saturation. There's no contrast adjustment. There's no black. Because usually what I do, if I take one of my color images and I drop it into black and white, my black slider goes down. And that's basically because I want those shadows a little bit deeper. Well, you can't crush the blacks. Yeah, you can. And you can blow out the highlights too. There's so much that, and I always say it, I'm like, a technically proper photograph all the time is a boring photograph, in my opinion.
A digital, technically.
Well,
correct
yeah. So,
photograph.
and that's,
because
and
if you're shooting it in RAW, it's coming out a flat image.
Right. Well, and it's, so when it's properly lit, it's like, it's boring. And that's a personal thing. And everybody, like, if anybody works with me and they talk to me about it, I'm just going to be like, look, I like shadows. I like using shadows. I use less on girls than I do on guys. Guys, I really give them a lot of punch, a lot of shadows, a lot of, not necessarily grit, but I want to
You're-
give them some dramatic.
You're
and,
not a light and airy guy.
Well, you know what's funny? I'm considered a light and airy in some things, and how my edits are, because the one company, and I had them do it once, right? I had them edit one wedding, and you have to choose like your editing style plus your preset and however your development preset and everything. And I was in the light and airy group. I'm not a light.
Really?
Now,
You're not a light and
now
airy
I
guy.
shot fitness photos yesterday, and they were light and airy.
Mm-hmm.
Now the highlights weren't blown at
Right.
all. I mean, they were properly lit. I wouldn't say they were boring because it was more of a branding thing.
Mhm.
And so it was use of the space with her in her space that she uses for her fitness training.
Okay.
And so they weren't blown out. But sometimes like I always laugh because they're like, well, there has to be something in the sky. Look, I don't know where you live, but like even last night the sky was orange,
Mhm.
but that was it. There
Right.
was nothing
There was
else
nothing
there.
else there.
There was nothing else there. So then it's hard to balance
Mhm.
the photograph a little bit, especially at dusk. And you're using fill flash,
Mhm.
and it's like, and of course it was windier in hell, so I'm using a smaller modifier.
Yep.
So the light's a lot harder.
Mhm.
And so I got to bring it back further, crank it up, trying to get the light to spill without falling over. 'Cause luckily the flash only fell once yesterday. And
You've already had one break. This
oh my
year.
God. And we thought we were good at the point when it did, because I'd put a softbox on it,
Mhm.
and it was like 7:00. Just very little breeze.
Mhm.
Well, still a damn parachute. Little breeze comes by. Whoop! Behind me. I hear, and I go. I know. I already know. I'm like,
But a
there it goes.
Little breeze in Iowa is like most people's windy day.
Right.
So we get pretty used to it.
yeah,
up here.
it's crazy with everything, and it's really so we as in Tim did not put fresh batteries in this because it was supposed to go in X amount of hours.
It didn't make
It did
that
not make
many
it.
hours.
So we had to restart in the middle, and I'm assuming that there's some sort of
Battery.
modifier. Yeah, right there. See, DC 5 volt.
Yep.
You know the cool thing, everybody? There's one there. There's one over there.
They're all around. us.
There's one behind me, and all I had to do was run the thing up there.
And you just realized that, didn't you?
I knew it because I tested it the other day when you got it.
Well,
But
we won't make that mistake.
no, we're not going to make that mistake. So we've been talking for at least an hour and a half. So we have like quite a bit of this that is missing. So we're just going to blend it together where it cut out, and we'll end up starting over again. But
One
so
of these time we're gonna get this.
we're gonna get it. Well, the last one was good.
The last one was good.
So we're learning. I appreciate everybody for putting up with us. We could keep on going, but like I was getting ready to start on something that I've talked about, but I don't know at what point I talked about it.
Right.
So I'm trying
We're
not.
gonna have to watch this
I'm
video
not-
and be like, what did we cover?
I'm not
and
gonna
what
make
did
it
we not
redundant, but
cover?
we're gonna post this bad boy up anyway. I'm gonna cut it where the sound cuts. I'm gonna jump back in, and hopefully it makes a little bit of sense. But it sounds good. It looks good. It's gonna go
Right.
out. It's gonna go out.
It's gonna be what it's gonna be, and then whatever was left out, we'll cover again.
our 14 subscribers.
Thank you.
We appreciate you guys. So, with that said, my Goliath Brewing
Is empty.
is
My
basically
cup of coffee
empty.
Is toast. So
His cup of coffee's toast. So, with that said, I am Tim,
I'm Jason.
and this is Exposed. Peace out.
See ya. I don't think we even started with our names this time, did we?
No, we didn't.